Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Philadelphia Phillies find themselves down 2-0 to the Dodgers. Also, the Jags improved to 4-1 after stealing a win from the Chiefs on Monday night. And Dolphins fans are having a group therapy session after a very poor start to the season.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The LA Dodgers went to Philadelphia and took 2 to open their NLDS series against the Phils. A 4-3 Game 2 win now heads to the West Coast. Connor Thomas from Locked On Phillies joins me now. And Connor, clearly not the way Philadelphia wanted these first 2 games to go. What went wrong for the Phils?
Just about everything besides the starting pitching. I mean, you got 2 for 21 in the first 2 games from the top 3 of the order: Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber. That's not remotely enough production for a guy that led the National League in batting average. Kyle Schwarber led the National League in home runs and RBIs, and Bryce Harper is a 2-time MVP. And if those guys don't hit, you're not going to win many games. And on top of that, the manager here, Rob Thompson, might be managing himself out of a job next year with some of the bullpen decisions and a sacrifice bunt in the 9th inning with no outs that might have cost the Phillies this game. It's been a whole lot of bad for the Phillies through the first 2 games.
Yeah, and we think about teams built for postseason runs. All the names you mentioned have been through this, not just, in recent times, like over the course of their career. There's a lot of playoff equity in this lineup, and we didn't see it.
That's a tough thing to explain. I mean, Trey Turner and Kyle Schwarber have both been part of championship teams. Bryce Harper has been a guy who, he hit a home run to send the Phillies to the World Series back in 2022. So you look at the top 3, and it's hard to imagine that they're not ready for the moment. But the past couple of postseasons, you even go back to 2023 in the NLCS against the Arizona Diamondbacks, and then last year against the Mets. This year, what you've seen through 2 games against the Dodgers, I don't know what's happened to those top 3 guys in this Phillies lineup, but they do not seem remotely ready for October. And Rob Thompson said after the game, it seems like they're just trying a little too much, but I don't know how you fix that. They have to, but it's a tough excuse to sell the Philadelphia fan base.
Yeah. Do you think anything, and like, if you're going to be the optimist here, the glass half full, it's okay, you're down 0-2. Now you're just you can play free, or do you worry that it's going to go the other way? Now you're almost playing desperate. And if you were pressing as those top 3 hitters or anybody else in the lineup, now all of a sudden it's worse.
Well, the bottom line is everything that I'm hearing from the manager post-game after the first 2 games is that the Philadelphia Phillies are playing like they are the significantly lesser team in this series, and that's a bad recipe for success. He said after this game with the sacrifice bunt decision, we were playing for the tie. At home, in that situation with no outs with a runner on second, that's ridiculous. And they're throwing Aaron Nola in Game 3, who has a 6 ERA this year, while Ranger Suarez, who was apparently available out of the bullpen in Games 1 and 2, will not make the start in Game 3, even though he was awesome down the stretch. I don't know what Rob Thompson's doing. I don't know what this organization is doing, but playing free, maybe, but they feel like they've been beaten since the second they first took the field against the Dodgers. And that's something that I don't know how you fix.
So what are they playing for here over the next, 1 or 2 games?
They're playing for everything because Kyle Schwarber's a free agent. Ranger Suarez is a free agent. JT Realmuto is a free agent. This core, this Philadelphia Phillies group that you've seen for the past 4 or 5 seasons, really, past 4 postseasons, they are no longer going to be a thing after this postseason comes to an end. So they're playing for their legacy in the city of Philadelphia, and an era where they have the second longest postseason appearance streak in franchise history is going to go by the wayside unless they decide they have a miracle comeback in them.
We've seen the teams win a lot of games in the regular season and flame out in the playoffs. It is, in some ways, maybe if you're not a Phillies fan, amusing that it happens against a Dodgers team that we've seen do this, be the best team in baseball in the regular season, and then flame out in the postseason. You mentioned legacy. Like, if this goes badly, what is the legacy of this core, of this group?
So we already have the conversation in Philadelphia. And when you look in retrospect at the 2008 to 2011 Phillies, who won one World Series, but a lot of people feel like they should have found another one somewhere in there with the Ryan Howard, Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley core. But at least they got one. They got back to another one in 2009, the year after they won one. This is a team that got no hit in the only World Series that they went to and has just slowly, steadily backtracked from there. Regular season wins are not going to cut it when you look back on this team. And bottom line is you're going to see one of the top 2 or 3 payrolls in baseball for each of the last 4 years that contributed no championships to the city of Philadelphia, and in a city that, in all fairness, has been short on them, so maybe we should be used to this. Championships are how you're measured, and they have not gotten the job done to that level.
Stay up to date all year on the Philadelphia Phillies by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Phillies on your favorite podcast app. Your Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, the Jaguars steal a win from the Chiefs at home. Before we get to that, the Brewers are 1 win away from advancing to the NLCS. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however I like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. The Brewers used the long ball to take Game 2 of the NLDS over the Cubs.
One more win away. Hey, everybody. Chuck Freeman, it's the reaction. Locked on Brewers. The Brewers used 6 relievers in back of their opener, Ashby, and they allowed just 1 hit. Led by the Miz, 3 scoreless innings. And he threw a pitch 104 miles an hour. Any worry about Miz pitching an outing like this in postseason? None at all. And Churio, that hamstring, he wasn't going 100%. You could tell that. But it didn't prevent him from hitting a 3-run home run in the 4th inning to bust this thing wide open. After the Cubs put up the 3-run home run in the 1st, well, Team Lifeless went dead lifeless after that 1st inning. They could do nothing against Brewer relievers. And Vaughn came back, hit a 3-run homer in the 1st. This place was shaking. Contreras, a tie-breaking home run. The Brewers were on their way. How about that? Now, the series, it's not over yet. I know, they're in command. They're probably heavily favored at this point. But, man, getting that 3rd win will not be easy. The first 2 got some work to do in Chicago. We'll talk to you a little bit later on in the early morning hours on Tuesday morning. The next edition of Locked On Brewers. Going to be a late night. If not, we'll see you guys all early in the morning if you're not staying up with us. See you tonight. Please subscribe to Locked On Brewers.
Zach Taylor isn't giving up the headset just yet. After another flat offensive showing in Sunday's loss to Detroit, the Bengals head coach confirmed he'll keep calling plays even as the pressure mounts on the Bengals season. Cincinnati has scored just 3 first-half points in each of its last 3 games and sits near the bottom of nearly every offensive category without Joe Burrow. Taylor says he's comfortable with the setup and still trusts his process. But at 2-3 and searching for rhythm, both on and off the field, the calls will only get louder if things don't turn soon. Oh, and they get Micah Parsons and the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field off a bye week on Sunday. And Mark Sanchez situation has taken another serious turn. The former NFL quarterback and current Fox Sports analyst is now facing a felony battery charge stemming from what police describe as a violent altercation with a 69-year-old truck driver in Indianapolis. Authorities allege the fight began over a parking dispute and left both men injured. Sanchez with stab wounds and the driver with severe lasting injuries. Prosecutors say the case remains under investigation with additional charges possible. Sanchez remains hospitalized in stable condition as his family says he's focused on recovery while the legal process unfolds. The Jacksonville Jaguars beat the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday night, much the same way Kansas City has beaten a lot of teams over the years. This one a 31-28 effort. They took advantage of a late mistake and marched down with some clutch plays from Trevor Lawrence where you go, I don't know how he did that. Chris Clark from Locked On Chiefs joins me now. And Chris, this is now a Kansas City team that falls to 2-3. They have not looked quite like themselves so far this season, but I think the offense looked the most like itself that we've seen it here. More encouraged or discouraged by what we saw from Kansas City on Monday night?
Kansas City beat themselves in this game. Can't turn the ball over in the red zone. Can't throw a pick, and especially not pick six. Gave Jacksonville, that was a 14-point swing. But you also can't be in a situation where you give them the opportunity to go down and win the game late. Too many miscues. Jacksonville was, I think, down 14-7. Trevor Lawrence throws a ball up, and Kansas City has it hit 3 different defenders, and they can't come down with the interception. I mean, just a simple, don't fight over it, and it's a pick, and that's 7 points off the board. Probably a different game at that point.
Patrick Mahomes has been one of the best situational quarterbacks, especially in big games, we've ever seen. Andy Reid, these teams have traditionally been exceptionally well coached. And to your point, this has not been a new phenomenon, unfortunately, for the Chiefs. They have looked like a more sloppy team this year and years past. Is this all of the roster machinations and turnover finally catching up with them? Is it some of the ancillary pieces just not rising to the moment? How would you diagnose some of the uncharacteristic mistakes that we've seen from Kansas City this season?
It's a bunch of different things. I think you look at week 1, if Travis Kelce doesn't hit Xavier Worthy, I think this team could have been 4-0 going in this game. Mm-hmm. And I kid you not, Xavier Worthy, I think, is that big of an offensive piece to this team. And they had a full game plan to use him, much like what you saw against the Ravens and kind of like what you saw against the Jags tonight. And I do think that he would have just completely changed the way that game went. They couldn't get their offense going in that game, couldn't get their offense going against the Eagles. And now you're in a situation where you're 2-3 and you're going up against the Detroit Lions in less than a week. You have a pretty decent chance of being 2-4 at this point. And I do think that that's a huge concern. I do think when you look at the defense has played pretty well. Only allowed 27 points tonight or 24 points tonight, something like that. Yeah. Based on the, pick six. It's really going to be hard to win in the NFL if you allow 24 points on a regular basis, but this defense hasn't been doing that against an even better offense. Last week against the Ravens, they didn't even allow that much. So I think that this team is going in the right direction, and they still don't have their best wide receiver back yet, and Rashee Rice, who they'll get back after the Lions game.
Yeah, so it seems like you are more encouraged than discouraged, at least in that way. But that being said, if they are 2-4 after 6 games, that is an awfully deep hole to crawl out of. The good news for Kansas City is you look around the AFC and you go, well, who are you afraid of?
Well, 2-4 is a big hole to get out of. Don't get me wrong, but you haven't had your best wide receiver so far this season. You played without your second best wide receiver for 2 games, and I do think that, or 3 games, basically 2 games. So I think at this point you're in a situation where the offense is going to continue to get better as long as they can stay healthy. They finally got the left tackle situation figured out with Josh Simmons. He looks like a complete stud there. No real pressure on Patrick Mahomes tonight. So that wasn't really an issue. And, they won 15 games last year before, they were 15-1 before the playoffs, and then they lost their last game when Patrick Mahomes and most of the offense was sitting. So they can string wins together. It gets a lot harder in the second part of the season, but I think this offense is going to be a lot better, and the defense has already played well. Just couldn't get it done tonight.
What did you make of this Jacksonville Jaguars team? I don't want to leave them totally out of this. Of course, that final drive, Trevor Lawrence makes the unbelievable throw. He turns what could have been a devastating play into the game-winning play.
Yeah, they're a good team. The big question to me going in this game is I thought if Kansas City didn't turn the ball over 3 times or turn the ball over more than the Jags did, then they would be on the winning column on this one. But the reality is that the winning play in this game was that pick six. You take that pick six off the board, Kansas City gets a touchdown there or even 3 points, this game's completely different, and huge momentum shift. But the other part of it is go back and watch. Kansas City's up 14-0 and then ends up going down 21-14. That's a problem too.
Stay up to date all year on the Kansas City Chiefs by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Chiefs on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Coming up, it's group therapy time, Dolphins fans. It's getting late early in Miami after a 1-4 start for the Dolphins. Is it even possible to turn things around? No stone left unturned by Locked On Dolphins host Kyle Krabs, who recently held a group therapy session for Fins fans.
You ran the ball 8 times on first down in a game that you at one point led 17-0. And the first 4 of those runs came when you were winning 3-0 or it was 0-0. And you had 1 run on first down in which the ball carrier got past the line of scrimmage before they were contacted by a player. I watched them. I pulled it up. I said, I want to know who's at fault here. I went play by play. And you got Nick Westbrook-Akine running right past the defensive end as the player in motion at the snap. You've got Julian Hill having Nick Scorton, who's a second-round draft choice, ducking underneath of him on an outside run and just getting the heels of Devon Achane to trip him up for -2, or at first contact -2. You run one gap scheme off the right-hand side, and you get 3 yards on it with Ollie Gordon running downhill. You pull an offensive guard. That went for 2. So the only run in which you had positive yardage was the one run that didn't fall into your typical zone schemes. You've got guys not taking cutback lanes. Yet Derek Brown was a superhuman on 2 of those reps. You had another motion at the snap with Devon Achane, and the Panthers went into a run check, and they blitzed the linebacker through the B gap, and nobody touched him. And Ollie Gordon gets impacted 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Nothing he can do. 6 of your 8 runs on first down went to the left-hand side. And you had -10 rushing yards on 8 carries on first down in a game that at one point you led by 3 scores. And I get it. The right side of the offensive line is backups. 3rd string guard, 2nd string right tackle. You're working around certain limitations. But man, is it a gut punch to have your first game without Tyreek Hill, to kind of have some ball control elements early, get a lead, and then completely be shut down in a way in which you effectively gave up on trying to run the ball at one point. And Carolina's front structure was they had 3 down linemen, heavy-handed guys, A'Shawn Robinson, Derek Brown, Bobby Brown, LaBryan Ray had several splash plays at the line of scrimmage. LaBryan Ray had several splash plays at the line of scrimmage, including one on the actual past the line of scrimmage run before first contact with Ollie Gordon on the counter play out of pistol, in which Larry Borum tries to down block LaBryan Ray and comes a little too flat, and Ray gets back up over top of his face and gets the first contact on Ollie Gordon in the pile. And then they had a defensive end, whether it was Princely Umanmielen or whether it was Nick Scorton as the other guy. Maybe it was Patrick Jones. And then they played big nickel, and they had Trayvon Moehrig living down in the nickel a whole bunch. It wasn't, hey, let's load the box and force the Dolphins to have to pass us to win. Tua Tagovailoa's explanation after the game was, although they went their quarters looks, they stuffed the middle of the field and played linebackers at depth. It's the same explanation for every time you've had offensive problems passing the ball for 2.5 years. Can we stop acting like cover 2 is some grand puzzle to have to solve? I don't think we were quite diverse enough to try to probe for yards on the ground. And I understand you didn't want to run into the middle. And I understand you had a couple cutback opportunities on outside runs and guys didn't take them. I think Achane had one, and I think Ollie Gordon had one. So it's a little bit of everybody. I think it's a little bit of everybody. And that's really frustrating because this is year 4 of this offensive system. Not everybody's played 4 years in the system. Devon Achane's in year 3. Ollie Gordon's in year 1. Jonas Savaianai is in year 1. Continues to be an abject disaster for you at left guard thus far. No ands, ifs, or buts about it. There's some redeeming point of attack skills But man, was he bad in pass pro again. Just a chaos merchant, the likes of which properly belong in the conversation of names like Liam Eichenberg at this stage. I'd say if you had any viable options that were healthy to put in instead of him, I think you'd be justified to sit him down for a bit. You'd be justified, but they don't have anybody healthy. Andrew Meyer, nope. IR. Liam Eichenberg, pup, nowhere near healthy. James Daniels, injured reserve. So that's the running game.
I just want to add, Mike McDaniel, if you're going to lose to the Panthers, you can't wear the hiked up joggers. It's just, you can't. You got to hike those suckers down until you can win some games. It's not the vibe. It's not the look. And finally, there are a slew of NFL teams already frustrated with their performance this season. Perhaps none more than the Baltimore Ravens, who came into the year with sky-high Super Bowl expectations. Ravens head coach John Harbaugh isn't ready to call it quits, though, doubling down in interviews on Monday by saying the team will turn things around. Injuries to Lamar Jackson and 6 of the team's highest paid players have gutted the roster, but an easier stretch ahead could offer a lifeline. Whether the comeback starts with Jackson under center or someone else, the Ravens aren't dead yet, or at least that's what they're telling us. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, is this the end of the line for the New York Yankees, or do they have a little fight left? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.